Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the families or a successful family and using, if you like, the springboard of the Godfather, the mafia family from that very famous movie from the 1970s, or I think it was made in like 71, 72, something like that. Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, and other actors were some who became quite prominent later on. But having a look at that and seeing, well, there's a lot of people sort of admired. You wish I had the power of Don Corleone. I wish I had the respect that he got, and wow, wouldn't it be nice to have people be that afraid of you, and so on. So, and that power he had to make hotshot Hollywood moguls do what he wanted. Whoa, wow, that'd be so cool to have that sort of power. And he started off as a child migrant through Ellis Island. And rose to be in charge of this huge criminal empire, and the power, the wealth, the riches, the so on. Gee, I wouldn't mind a bit of that. Now, I sometimes, I saw that movie when I was, I don't know, 15 or something, and it had already been out for a while, but it struck me as quite gory when I saw it. You see it as almost tame today, but I had a look at that and thought, as a kid, well, wow, I wouldn't mind having a bit of that power and so on. And it sounds seductive, and you look only at the good side of all that money he had, and all that respect, the way people groveled to him and were be my friend Godfather and all this sort of thing. All that respect, the way people groveled to him and were be my friend Godfather and all this sort of thing. But let's look at a sort of wider reality here. I've often, especially as a young guy, I saw captains of industry that I came into contact with, and I was filled with awe and admiration. I want to be like that, but when I remember looking at one guy who was a politician. I didn't know who he was, but at the time, that he got out and made a speech, and he was so confident and so self-assured, so suave. He had such a fancy suit on, just the cut of the suit. I thought, wow, you didn't buy that off the rack. And he had this fawning bunch of flunkies who were sort of groveling at his feet, and he was the big man and all this sort of thing. And when I don't know, 18 or 19, something like that, 20, that sort of stuff can be quite alluring and seductive. Oh, I want to be like him. But the realities of life are quite different. Now, that guy, that politician that I saw, I just happened to be in a room. I'd been invited there. I happened to be in a room, and he marched in and made a speech, and he stood almost right next to me. So I sort of saw him up close, and again was filled with this sort of childlike worshipping type admiration that you lose pretty quickly as you get older. But he just have a look at his. He went through a few different marriages, and kind of didn't work out so well. He had a number of children. One committed suicide. Two ended up in prison for drug dealing, and the fourth was committed to an insane asylum. So you'd say that for whatever successes he achieved in public life, as a politician, things didn't work out so well for him in the private life there. And then he got some as he got older, he got some disease, and so he lived like a vegetable for years, but conscious of his vegetable state and that sort of thing. So I thought, so as I got older, I thought that maybe his life wasn't so successful. if his kids had that many problems, then I can't imagine what the home life was like, given that each kid seemed to have really the same problem. One of them, for example, was in prison for drug dealing they went to prison for a few years, came out, and then they were back in prison again a couple of years later for drug dealing and they were involved in some shootout with a rival drug dealer. So these were people. Now these were kids that had inherited quite well. They'd inherited houses and this sort of thing, but they were so dysfunctional, so fucked up that was how their lives unfolded. So you got to wonder, what price did this guy pay for success and adulation in public life? I remember he did a speech in a football stadium once, and he's clearly well loved by the public. Everyone applauded and cheered, and he seemed to be very well thought of by the public, this politician. But how fucked up every other part of his life was. So if that's the price you have to pay in terms of all of his kids engaging in the most strident self-destructive behavior, why would you want that success? Would it not be more sort of worthwhile to have a lower key public life, or indeed no public life, but have 4 sort of happy and healthy, well-functioning, doing well children, and have maybe not so many marriages and this sort of thing. So now, financially and in terms of, again, the public life he appeared to be successful by every measure, but only outside of that, again, his private life, then it was a fucking disaster. Which would you have? And he'd clearly selected one and accepted the other as a necessary collateral damage casualty. But would you really want that? What does that say about him as a person, that he was prepared to sacrifice his children so casually there, and yet continued with his public life, even as the whole family thing was going to rack and ruin around him? Shouldn't he have stopped earlier, for example? Now, I've seen this with other people in public life, and people who, again, captains of industry, they seem to, now it could be their very single-minded pursuit of one objective, and that's what happens when you single-mindedly pursue one objective and ignore other priorities and important things of life, that they suffer. But the extent to which this guy's family fell to pieces suggests there was something else going on. Can you have that much dysfunction in these kids that, again, inherited quite well, and even if they take a job, just in some ordinary job somewhere, they could have done okay for themselves. So they already had a nice house and this sort of thing through inheritance. So they didn't really need much to be able to have a somewhat comfortable life. But anyway, now let's come back to the Godfather. All this admiration. Would you want that much power? Because when you have that many people who fear you and grovel to you, then you've got a lot of people who want to kill you as well. So, do you want to have to live in a fortress all the time, or live with bodyguards everywhere you look, and this sort of thing, which again was sort of highlighted to some extent in The Godfather, but you tended to see that as the evil Virgil Sollozzo, stirring up trouble rather than anything else. Good Don Corleone was being put upon by this evil drug runner guy. Corleone was even presented as being somewhat, a man of sober family values, because he didn't want to get into drugs and just wanted to stay with prostitution and gambling and illicit liquor sales and getting into the trade unions and killing the odd person here and there who stepped out of line and so on. But if you look at the Corleone, his eldest son was a rampaging hothead who made the dumbest mistakes, and one after the other, especially running off to go and the Carlo Rizzi character, beating up Sonny's sister and all. He rushes off to deal with it. and doesn't take his bodyguards with him. Things like that. Even the minimum, especially given the tension of the day, a minimally sober person wouldn't have done. But anyway, so somebody that ill trained and someone unprepared for any sort of Godfather, Don type role is there, and he gets himself killed, which with his behaviour was almost inevitable. Then you've got Fredo being pretty fucked up. Then you've got Connie being incapable of having relationships with me. Why is that? And then you've got Michael, who turns into a cold-blooded killer, and so on. So if you've got those sort of four children, then in my view, you've done something terribly wrong with your family. Now, Corleone claims, I only did this to look after my family, and I wasn't going to be a puppet on a string, and I don't apologise for looking after my family, but I don't know, is that looking after your family where you've got so many people around who want to kill you, and you can't wait to bring you down, and who want to kill your children, and that sort of stuff? I mean, do you really want that? Why was Connie so incapable of relationships? Why was she such a bitter and angry person? What sort of upbringing did she have? So really, I would see, I would look at the Corleone thing as an older person with more life experience and relationship experience and so on. Certainly more so than a 15-year-old kid, anyway. That I would look at that and say, well, no, that's actually a non-success. I wouldn't see that as successful at all. If you've got that many fucked up kids, then universally you've been doing something that's been not so good. And to live your life that way, thinking there's anyone could come at any minute, could pop out of a doorway with a gun and start shooting at you, that's not a pleasant thing. To have that many bodyguards and have your house as a fortress, then that's not a way to live your life either. So, living on edge and with that much tension every day, I mean, it would just fuck you up. So I look at successes, people who have power and who appear on the face of it. Wow, I wouldn't mind having that power, as observers might think. I don't see it that way now as I'm older and maybe a bit more sober. I see a success comes in a variety of ways. Having a good quality life. Being able to relax, not wondering if someone's going to come and try and kill you, to see your children doing well and to see them happy, these sorts of things. These are important things, and I would say just as important, if not more important, in the grander scheme of things than making a shitload of. Not there's anything wrong with making a shitload of money, by the way, but making a shitload of money, but having everything else go to shit. That to me is not a sign of success. I'd be interested in looking at your comments below. From personal experience, being like a CEO and this sort of stuff, there's a certain amount of stress and strain that comes with it, a certain amount of time and commitment, your energy and commitment, your time, your thoughts, every spare waking moment seems to be drawn into or absorbed into that sort of lifestyle, and watching around you, what are the board of directors up to, why are they asking those questions, what's going on, why are these guys reporting to me, recording the conversations we have and then handing them over to one of the directors on the board, why is that going on, these sorts of things. And you live a certain life with a certain amount of stress. The energy it takes to exist day to day is at a certain level, a certain threshold, sometimes even a fever pitch, and that naturally distracts you away from other more important things, such as your family, such as your wife or your children or whatever, or even other your relatives and so on, your brothers and sisters or whatever, and so you look at the wider cost of living that sort of lifestyle and say, well, is it really worth it? For example, I've seen men who've been very committed to making money, and then they've got to say they get divorced, for example, and because they've been making money, the courts divorce courts viciously go chasing after them. So these guys then decide, there's no really point making money anymore, so I'll just go and be I'll go and clean windows for cash or something like that. And so these are the sort of adjustments and interactive situations that occur when once there's a loss of where the perspective over the wider issues of life are lost. But there you go, a bit of a bit of a trip down an interesting sort of lane there. But again, I'll be interested in seeing your comments. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.